Most change doesn't begin with a plan, but with discomfort. It starts in that moment that you realize something's wrong and you can't ignore it anymore. I'm Saskia Falcon. Welcome to The Odds in Our Favour, a News 24 Good News podcast, brought to you by Old Mutual Wealth, helping you grow, protect and preserve what matters. Today, I'm joined by Leana de Beer, who's working to change the rules of higher education in South Africa so that potential isn't locked out by price of admission and the price of course fees. Leana, thank you so much for being here. When people Google search your name today, they'll find titles and achievements and a growing story of success. But I would really like us to pause for a moment and rewind. Before this work had a name, before Phoenix was raising millions of rands and helping thousands of South African students access tertiary education, I want to go back to where the story really began. When you think back on your own education journey, what stands out for you?
So I grew up in a very small farming community in the Bushveld in Limpopo, very conservative, very religious, very Afrikaans. And I went to a mostly white school, historically a Model C school. So very sheltered from the realities of the world. But education was always important to my family. And I remember my mother specifically was very harsh on us around academic performance. And we didn't have a choice. We had to go to university. We had to study. That was a rule in the house. And I was lucky enough and blessed enough to be able to go to university. But more so, I remember my parents supported and helped many kids around me with school fees all the way to university. And even our domestic worker, who I had a very close relationship with, her son was helped to go study medicine. So this thing of ensuring opportunity for all was there in my family, although my family was very, very conservative. And I tell the story because it's something that stuck with me. And only much, much later did I realize that the friction this created in my identity and in my community, when these values and principles that I learned from my family as a service-orientated family, when it started expanding across culture lines.
That is so interesting because, like a lot of South Africans, families, education really represents that opportunity for a better future. And I'm assuming that's also what was in the core of what your mom was motivated by. What role do you think education played in your life at that point? Did you just see it then as just pressure, as something that you just had to do, or did you also see it as a possibility for your potential?
I think both of those things are true. Definitely an opportunity for exposure and life experience. That's always a big part. When you have the opportunity, even now, to go to university, one of the things it does, it allows you to engage with other people from all walks of life. It is this opportunity as an 18-year-old to be able to be independent in a fairly safe environment. And that in itself creates opportunity. But that being said, of course, there's a lot of pressure around it. And we see that today, parents push and force their children, force is maybe a harsh word, but really motivate their children to go to university, often without the understanding of, am I studying the right thing? Is it the right thing for me? There's still a very, very heavy emphasis on the value of tertiary education in this country, regardless of what the tertiary education is. And I definitely saw that myself growing up.
Was there a moment when you became aware that in South Africa, getting into tertiary education wasn't just about merit, that actually there were so many students that don't make it through the door at all, and that's not because academically they're not committed and actually producing the results that they need to do?
It wasn't the one big moment, but there's lots of little things, little seeds through the time of me growing up. So I was born in 1986, so that meant on the cusp of the new government. Very faint memories of that time. I was very, very young. But around grade 7, grade 8 was the first time that our all-white school opened their doors to black children, and the first black pupil was in my grade. And I often now think back to her because she was by herself, the only black student in an all-white school. And how difficult that must have been for her parents, but also for her to make that choice and to continue for many years as the only black people in an all-white conservative farming community school. And so that was probably the first time I noticed there's something different here. Also, as I mentioned, I was very, very close with our domestic worker, and I used to go visit her at her house in the township, and her children went to a different school. And their school was on the other side of the train track. So there was a white school and there was a township school. And I found that to be quite strange as well. As a young kid, it didn't internalize until much later. I think where the big moment started happening for me is when I went to university and I could breathe a little bit and find my own identity and sense of self. I started running into a lot of friction in my family and community when I started befriending or engaging other cultures, other races, other religions. And that's when I started realizing, okay, there's a difference here. Certain people, there's expectations and opportunity for certain groups of people that's different from other groups of people. And that friction, I think maybe my community or family members hoped that it would make me, what it did at the end is it made me go deeper into the why is there friction around. I was taught as a young child to be community driven, to look out for people, to be service orientated, to make sure no one's left behind. But now all of a sudden in this space, it's starting to become an issue because a person looks different or speaks a different language than me. So university for me, and that's the beauty of tertiary education, was really that watershed moment where I'm like, who am I and who do I want to be within that very difficult friction-based environment with family members that didn't understand my new way of looking at the world.
And as you're telling that story, I'm thinking for a lot of South Africans, tertiary education is the first time we're going to come into contact with this rainbow nation that is South Africa. And all of a sudden, really coming face to face with all different kinds of individuals. What gave you the courage to sit in that friction and that discomfort?
I think I was born like that. I honestly, one of the strengths I have as a person, even in the world of work and entrepreneurship, is I'm very brave. I go towards things that scare me. I go towards things that I don't understand. I'm very curious and I'm very brave. And I've always been a little bit of a soft anarchist. If you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to go do it. And I'm very empathetic, which was nurtured. My mom's a psychologist. My mom taught us about emotional intelligence and really looking after everyone in the room. So those lessons became who I am today. And I just didn't realize that there was implicit boundaries to it. So I think it's a combination of just the way I am, and then what I continue to nurture in myself.
Let's get now to Phoenix. Just before Phoenix is conceptualized or come to fruition, we go to the 2015-2016 Fees Must Fall movement, a massive student movement across South Africa. It really sparked a lot of conversation. It was so needed. Looking back now, how would you describe the problem as you saw it then? And would you say that things have shifted meaningfully since then?
Fees Must Fall was exactly as you say, really, really needed. I mean, I think people that was on the inside weren't surprised by it. And I often say to people, we'll probably see more of those kind of protests. I think we are very close to another Fees Must Fall movement of that scale. But I think what it did is a lot of people think that the funding available in government and NSFAS is enough to cover the need. And it just isn't. There isn't enough money to cover the need for every student or any young person that should qualify or is qualifying for university. So I think it brought that to the forefront. The second issue around Fees Must Fall was the rising cost of education. It was far outstripping inflation. So we started seeing, hold on, no one can afford the actual cost of education. And not just for what we call the base of the pyramid, but even missing middle families. So that's categorized as families that earn between 300 and 600,000 per annum. So a lot of people say, oh, that's a lot of money. It's like 50,000 Rand per month per household. But if you look at the cost of education, it's not nearly enough, especially if you have more than one child at university and you include things like accommodation and all the external extra curriculum costs. So Feesmos really said, okay, hold on. We have youth unemployment that is continuing to rise in this country. Everyone says youth is where our asset lies on this continent, and it is. But we have a problem. We are not, educating enough young people fast enough in degrees that are valuable for the future. And Feesmos really brought that to the foreground. We also live in a country that is incredibly rich. There's so much money. No one can tell me there's not enough money in this country. It was about making sure that we can combine and bring those two things together. Is the money that's available going to the right places?
Do you think we've shifted meaningfully? Have we made a little bit of a dent into that issue?
I think we are more aware now of the problem, and we're starting to have more mature conversations around it, and we're starting to be able to highlight and ring-fence the problems better. But we haven't solved the problem at all, and we can see this by the work we do. We still have thousands and thousands of people coming to us every day saying, I need funding, I should qualify for NSFAS support, I should qualify for X, Y, and Z, I don't. And the fact that we're sitting on around 90 billion Rand of debt at the public universities tells me the problem isn't nearly being solved. So I don't think we are solving the problems quick enough. I think we've just created some more in the way we've reacted to Feesmos 4.
So then we get to 2017. Phoenix is then born. It's a public benefit organization, direct response to Feesmos Fall. And just to clarify the name, which I thought was really sweet. So it's not phoenixes in the bird rising, but it's actually students that came together, and it was like there's nux fees. So it's Phoenix. It's actually Phoenix Nix, like that. I'm in what I can see from the work that you do. I see Phoenix working at that intersection of storytelling, because you're really using the narrative of the student, the story of the student, technology, and then an innovative platform, and community contribution. And it's really kind of rethinking how capital is raised for tertiary education in this country. But for someone who's never ever heard of Phoenix before, how would you describe it in a nutshell so they understand, especially the crowdfunding component of it?
I think you've summed it up beautifully. We said during that time there's money and there's a need for funding. How can we bring and bridge those two groups? And that's really what we did with Phoenix. Is we said we're willing to take over the governance, ensure the money ends up exactly where it needs to, but just really bring the communities together. We also wanted the student to tell their story themselves and to put a face on students. Many people were saying to us during that time, I'm willing to help, but I don't know who and where and how do I make sure the money goes to the right place. So it was really about allowing individuals to tell their story, and you can go into Phoenix and find a degree. It's really curated to allow you to support the kind of student that you might be passionate about. So let's say you want to support black females in medicine in Gauteng or UP, because that's where you go. You can then go find that student and support that student, and we make sure that money goes to their tuition at UP.
And it's individuals and corporates, right?
Yeah, so it started as crowdfunding and has since, it's been running about 8 years, has developed into a very big bursary arm as well and a skills development arm as well. So we have raised over 350 million over the last 8 years and helped around just over 5,000 students. It's not nearly enough. We have on average about 200 million Rand of debt on the platform per annum. Sure. And we've raised a total of 340 million over 8 years. So it shows you, and for Phoenix, we're the net. So the students that end up at Phoenix, they've tried everything else, right, and we're their last option. So we sit on really interesting data because we know who is actually not getting helped and why they're not getting helped. And these are students that have already been accepted. So we only work with current students. I'm not even talking about the thousands of young people that didn't get into university because
all the ones who have debt, because I'm sure there must be a lot of historical debt as well.
So we do help students with historical debt, but I mean the matriculant that can't afford to go into university, we might not even know that they exist because they're not into the system yet.
People and institutions that supported you early on, I'm sure allyship and support really matters in this space, particularly when you're dealing with something that's a systemic issue and has quite ingrained processes and systems.
Yeah, so Phoenix was actually started by Standard Bank. Standard Bank wanted to do something during Fees Must Fall, and they came to an incubator, which I was working for at the time, and said, can you help us build this organization? It needs to be independent from the bank. So it was sponsored and is currently still sponsored by Standard Bank. And why that really matters is it has allowed us to really focus on impact. And then we have been working with big corporates, big banks, big institutions that have become multi-year funders. And then we also have individuals that donate. You know, we have, for example, a guy that comes on every year. We know him, and he comes on once a year, and he funds 4 female students completely. He funds them, he clears their debt, and he moves on. So we do have individuals like that, and then we have a lot of corporates that also comes on board and supports.
Wealth is about more than just numbers. It's about what you're shaping, your ambitions, your priorities, your legacy. That's why Old Mutual Wealth partners with skilled financial planners to bring the expertise of a leading wealth manager to your strategy. They help you make sense of both local and global opportunities, offering clear strategic insight so you can make confident decisions, whether you're building your wealth, protecting it, or shaping your financial future. Take your wealth further.
I want to move now to 2019 because then came Wafunda. Now, Wafunda is a social impact enterprise, and it's built around quite an innovative model, income share agreements or ISAs. Tell us a little bit about how Wafunda came into being, what sparked it, and then, you know, what need were you trying to fill, and then also how Black Bullion links into Wafunda.
So I call myself a social entrepreneur, and I really very excited about the potential and the growth that we see around social innovation in this country. But when I got involved with Phoenix, which is, like you said, a public benefit organization, I knew that I really wanted to do something in the social impact space. And by that I mean we wanted to see if we could expand on the work of Phoenix, and we're quite inhibited by the regulation of the public benefit organization structure of Phoenix. And we have done, over the last 8 years, a lot of research with students, with parents, with universities. And there's a lot of problems that's coming to the foreground. So we knew that we wanted a second organization that can work very closely with Phoenix, make sure that we're close to the problems, but can really innovate on those problems. And that's how Wafunda came about. So I convinced the Board of Trustees of Phoenix to let me start Wafunda. And Wafunda has 2 main products. The first one is Black Bullion, which is a financial literacy or financial education platform. We've learned, we did a research study in 2020 with about 450 students. And one of the things that came through was that many young people don't know how to manage money. They didn't learn it in school. And if a parent or a sibling or a partner doesn't show you the rules of how to do the basics, it's not something that you'll ever learn. So for us, it's critical that young people know how to manage money, not just when they're on bursaries, earning stipends, getting NSFAS funding, but also now earning their first salary. We see gambling is on the rise. It's a big issue under young people, debt, lifestyle pressures. So for us, we had to focus on youth-specific financial education. And we've launched that platform, and we currently have about 15,000 young people using that and learning how to not only budget and save, but even invest and join the crypto world. And then our second product, which is really an extension of the work of Phoenix, is an ethical loans product. So we will never remove scholarships or bursaries in South Africa. It is an incredibly proliferated, highly developed industry for many reasons. We're not going to go down that route now. But there isn't enough money to cover the need, as we've mentioned. So we've been looking into an alternative way of funding education that is still ethical in its design. So one of the things we've come across, it's not novel, you have versions and models of this all over the world, is to say, can we tie someone's financing to their future success? So if I know if you have access to this degree at this institution, you will be employable and earn 30,000 Rand a month, and over the next 10 years, potentially earn up to 80,000 Rand a month. that for me is investment worthy. I can back that. So really focusing on future success and then funding young people through a loan product like that. So how our ISA works is I pay for your education, and in exchange in the future you give me a percentage of your salary for a set period of time. So there's no interest rate, there's no compounding debt. If you don't ever earn or you don't earn above a certain amount of money, you never pay that money back. So we don't put you into spirals of debt. It's not based on your family's creditworthiness or surety or collateral, ability to stand collateral, which is often an exclusionary factor. It is based on your success. So it really incentivizes the whole ecosystem to care about the outcome and not just pushing young people through the education system, because the model only works when someone's working, earning and repaying. So we've been working hard at it. We ran a 3-year pilot in South Africa during 2011 and 2024, fairly successfully, about 700 students. And we've just in the final stages of concluding a new fund. And with this fund, we hope to help 4,000 students with loans at certain public universities at first, and to showcase that this is a new way that we can fund and potentially change the education financing system.
Wonderfully innovative. Any resistance along the way that you've encountered from institutions? Because anytime you're trying to shift a system now, there's potentially business from other people that you're taking away, particularly when we say no interest.
Anything that's going to be innovative and new is always going to run up against resistance. I don't even know where to start. The universities are, especially public universities, I have to just distinguish, are like old ships. It's institutions that have been around, some for 100 years. So the way that the systems, the administration, the processes, it's almost like government. It's bureaucratical, it's slow, there's many, many layers, and it's for good reason. So trying to change the university system, and the universities, in all fairness, are incredibly thinly spread. So sitting on debt, they don't have money for expansion, don't have money most universities don't have funding to build new infrastructure, invest in innovation. So universities in itself are really struggling, many of if we look at the 26 and not even the TVETs. So that's a challenge. Then convincing investors to give us funding for this category of loan, which is completely untested and new in the context of South Africa. It's a high risk investment vehicle because it is completely dependent on the success of young people, and we have a very bad youth unemployment rate. So we've been fundraising for about 18 months to try and get an investor to see the potential and give us concessional funding. And that means it's not typically commercial funding. It has better rates because it's such an impact product. So both on the investor side, on the university side, and then convincing students that this is the product for them. So definitely running up against a lot of challenges.
Have you found any investors?
Yes, we are. We've raised 140 million, and we're busy finalizing contracts now. Hopefully, we'll launch in the next few months.
What surprised you most about this work when you look at from the inception of Phoenix all the way through?
Look, I think entrepreneurship and social impact work and non-profit work is incredibly tough. The people that do this work in South Africa, it's their calling. You will not be in this work if you didn't deeply believe in the impact and the why of the work. So many people come to me, young entrepreneurs, and say, what's the things that make you successful and how can I be a successful entrepreneur? The first thing I say to them is you need to be comfortable with failure, and you need to accept from the get-go that this might not succeed, because it is really challenging. And then secondly, when no one believes in what you're trying to do, you need to be the person that wakes up every day and internally motivate yourself and really hold on to that vision. Whenever you are lacking inspiration, just speak to someone that is in student financing, because there are incredible stories of people don't have food, don't have family support, runs 3 businesses in order to keep themselves at university, sleeps under desks, sleeps in bathrooms. There's like so many stories of just incredible young people, and that I think is exciting and important to always remember, because we run against enough problems that you can get very tired and demotivated in the process.
Do you ever feel like giving up?
Of course. I think if you are a business owner in South Africa and you don't once a week ask yourself, why am I doing this? I think you're being ignorant and naive. We constantly go like, why am I doing this? Why did I choose this path? Why? But I think by speaking to other entrepreneurs or CEOs that feel similar, you laugh about it. There's a sense of humor in it, and you do it for as long as you can. I think many hands make for light work. And if you can do something for a few years or a few months or 10 years or a decade, just do what you can do, and then someone else will step in and take over. I don't feel like the whole education system is on my shoulder. I think that's ridiculous. But while I have the energy and the passion, I'm going to do my best and trust that after me or next to me or in front of me, there are other people that are doing their bit, and together we can maybe make an impact.
Well, let's just talk about that impact very quickly for someone who's listening. Let's just throw a quick spotlight on the work. So across the work, how much funding do you think you've raised, or do you know you've raised? And how many students does that represent, Leana?
Yeah, so for Phoenix, 340 million raised over the last 8 years, 5,300 students across the 26 public universities. For Wafunda, we ran that pilot. We helped 710 students to the value of 45 million. And then Black Bullion, we've given 15,000 youth access to financial education and literacy. And for our ISA product now, we hope to launch this 140 million rand fund, which will support specifically students with historical debt. That's what we're focusing on, is we're really trying to tackle that problem that's very unique and not a lot of people are focusing on. So final year students to hopefully the value of, or to the amount of 4,000 plus students over the next few years. We really want to showcase that this could work and then raise more and scale even further.
When you think about the work, what are you most proud of?
The last few years have been really, really tough in terms of, financial sustainability, cash flow management, getting enough investors on board. We've gone through times where we weren't sure if we were going to make it through to the end of the year on both Phoenix and Wafunda. So there's been times where we were like, we might have to pack this up. I'm incredibly proud of the team of people, both on the Phoenix and Wafunda side, that has walked this journey with me, that believes in me and has really committed so much of themselves into the business. And during this time, one of the things I just kept saying to myself, if I can build a business and ensure that everyone that works for me and with me walks away a better person and walks away more, has a better perspective about equality, equity, authenticity, kindness, and knows themselves better and feel like this is a good place to work for a certain period of time, I feel like that is maybe good enough. And that's the thing that I'm most proud of, is actually the internal impact I'm having with the people and the company we're trying to build. The external stuff feels and always seems like probably the thing we should celebrate most, and we do. But who am I and how do we run a business in a very complex country like South Africa with lots of challenges? And how do we show up for ourselves and for each other? And that's actually the thing I'm most proud. And to see my team come up on the ranks, people that started with me, that's moved into leadership positions, and to see them thrive and be confident and do a good job, that's what I'm most proud of for sure.
Just want to go back a little bit to the historical debt for people who might want to apply now. Just tell us a little bit about, can they apply, or are there certain rules in place there, or is it only people who have been on your platform and then graduated?
Applications will open probably towards the end of March, and that would be on Wafunda's website, but also through universities. And we are launching with University of UCT, Stellenbosch University, UKZN, WITS and UP, so only those 5. And anyone can apply. It doesn't matter the degree, as long as you are in your final year or you were in your final year last year and you couldn't graduate because of historical debt.
Leana, when you look back at your journey now, and you mentioned at the beginning that it wasn't an easy road when you decided to embark on this access for everyone journey in your own community that you came from, which was a very conservative Afrikaans farming community. When you look back now, is there anyone that you would say that stands out that supported you through this? Family, that maybe surprised you also, where you thought, this is unexpected, I didn't expect support to come from these quarters?
Yeah, my mom and my sister have been really wonderful champions over the course of my life. I recently read Antjie Krog's new book about her relationship with her mother, and in that book there's this beautiful scene where Antjie receives a award, and a journalist asks her mother about Antjie's politics, and isn't she disgusted? And the mom, who has very different politics from Antjie, says, and she says, what does my child's politics have to do with my love and my support for my child? And I love that so much, and I feel even within the complexity of identity and culture, we always have family members that love us and support us, and I do really feel supported by my mom and my sister. And then over the years, I've really rallied a group of friends that are wonderful, and a lot of my friends are themselves entrepreneurs or senior leaders in non-profits or impact spaces, and being able to rely on each other. We have very similar challenges, very similar problems, and being able to have a soundboard and have an environmental community where people are able to reflect back, but also keep you on the journey. That's been very, very helpful. And then I'll also be remiss to say that I have, on the Phoenix and Wafunda side, 2 incredible boards of directors. And over the last years, I hear my friends speak about when you have the wrong people on a board, how that can impact the success of the business. And over the years, I've had such a belief and trust from both those groups and board members in this journey has really allowed me to just get going. And without that, I think we would have potentially closed shop, years ago already, and that has made a massive difference, like people that believe in the work we're doing.
What's the vision? When will this work be done?
I don't think work will ever be done. For the next 5 to 10 years, we hope to showcase that this product is what we believe it will be, and that it will fundamentally change the way we fund education and create a sustainable source of funding so that money comes back and we can create a fund that we can help the next 20 years of education finance. I want to raise another fund after this one, and hopefully help thousands and thousands and thousands of students to the point where we can convince NSFAS to work with us, or to potentially see our work as a complement to the work they're doing. The idea is really to scale this to a R500 million loan book.
When you think about the journey now, what do you think this work has taught you about South Africa and South Africans?
I've always been in awe in terms of the civil society of South Africa. We have a very well-developed, mature civil society. We saw during COVID the impact that schools and churches and everyday community members had on making sure communities were taken care of. And that, I think, for me, that's never changed, that's never wavered.
Leana, without pretending that the odds are suddenly fair in South Africa and that everything is equitable, what gives you hope about this country?
I think the people give me hope. It's perspective, and you can choose to look at the bad things or you can choose to look at the good things, and everywhere around us are good, caring, wonderful people.
Leana, looking at Phoenix, Wafunda and Black Bullion, it's clear that what began as a fight against unequal access to higher education has become real systemic change. Thank you for showing that when we refuse to accept broken systems, we can actually build solutions that put people first. And for listeners, this isn't just about funding or about technology. It's actually about seeing the barriers that leave talented students behind and then choosing to act and daring to make a difference. Get involved at phoenix.org or wafunda.com. Thank you for listening to The Odds in Our Favour. I'm Saskia Falcon, and this News 24 Good News podcast was proudly brought to you by Old Mutual, helping you grow, protect and preserve what matters most with investment strategies designed to support your legacy. Old Mutual Wealth is an authorized financial services provider.